Welcome to this trip down memory lane. My name is Neil Omden. I'm the current CEO of Kemo Limited, part of the ESIG Group. 2025 marks the 60th anniversary of Kemo Limited. To celebrate this momentous year, we have put together a collection of interviews and historical pictures and just an overview of 60 years of business for Kemo Limited. We've been very lucky to have some of our previous managing directors and previous employees to give us some of their insights to the company's history. I hope you enjoy this, and as always, if you have any questions or would like to be in touch with us, do contact us. Thank you.
Kemo's history began in 1965, right back to the start, before the first product, before the first office. Bill Meek and Terry Grinston were dreaming of building something of their own. They considered involving a brilliant mathematician named Mark Koska. From their names, M.E. from Meek and K.O. from Koska, Kemo was born from that simple blend. From the very beginnings, Kemo was more than electronics. It was ideas, people and possibility. In 1970s, Kemo wasn't just on lab equipments. We were on the racetracks too. This photo from the 70s shows a Kemo-sponsored Lotus Elan proudly sporting our name, racing around circuits like Brands Hatch. Back in the exhibition halls across the world, Kemo's filters stood out. Our booth was modest but powerful. And behind it all was the team captured in this rare group photo from the early 70s. Engineers, technicians, and visionaries whose dedication laid the groundwork for decades of excellence. This year, as we celebrate 60 years, we honor the legacy built, we look back with pride and ahead with purpose. This is Kemo, past, present, and future. Now let's hear from those who helped shape that legacy, former directors who led with vision, and from the people who have relied on Kemo through the years, our valued customer.
I think their mission was basically to deploy the skills that they had, doing sort of unusual low volume kind of signal conditioning and filtering work for from various government departments, people putting big test facilities together. You know, they would kind of do the difficult stuff that was already hard to get hold of. Terry Grinston, one of the founders, always used to say, I don't want to have a repair department. I don't ever want to see these things again. I don't want to have to repair this stuff. I want it to be made well enough that it never comes back.
The first impressions were they were an essential part of our system, and they did the job well, they were reliable. Don't ever recall a Kemo filter failing.
Yes, I would say that the higher channel count systems, we one of our biggest contracts for quite a few years was for a filter in part of an MRI system from one of the big early manufacturers of body scanners, MRI scanners. And so that was I think it was a very important product for us. It had to be very high performance. It was a programmable filter and it had to be very high performance in each of its settings. We iterated that over several different versions, ending up as a 6U card-based system, and we were, at least we were told we were, the only component in their system which was single-sourced, because we were the only people who could make it.
At Cranfield Data Systems, one of the biggest systems that we sold there was a 256 channel data analysis system for the noise and vibration harshness application team. That required conditioning of 256 channels of accelerometers, which would be mounted on a car chassis or a part of a car. And there were some very specific requirements for the conditioning of so many channels. Kemo developed a special one-off system for us, which was a conditioning system for all 256 channels, programmable, on wheels, on an umbilical cord joined to the data acquisition system, which performed the job excellently. It was not a standard product. It wasn't a product that was in any way available at the time, other than by being designed and produced to our specification.
Wow, how did Kemo change in 25 years? We simplified the products, we gently improved quality and performance of the products, but that's an evolutionary process, not a step change. We digitized the business, we simplified the product range, made it much more logical.
The big change happened when the company had to it changed hands. Effectively, Robert bought the company from the surviving founder, because Robert's expertise and experience has been in manufacturing engineering, production engineering. He realized that he could reduce the exposure to some of the issues that we were facing by re-engineering some of the products. So he went through a phase of re-engineering a lot of the most popular products. So I think that was the key changing one, and I consulted with him for a few years, basically, to be, because when I left Kemo, I left with pretty much all of the expertise, if you like, the filter expertise, and so I consulted back in to make sure that the future products that Robert was going to make continued to embody the kind of the knowledge that we put in over the years before. So and I've always just kept an eye on what's been going on. And I think it's interesting that now that it's entered its next phase with Neil, I'm really interested to see how that continues and how it dovetails in with the additional things that Kemo now has to sell, which we didn't have access to before, the cables, the accelerometers, that kind of stuff. It makes a much more of a highly integrated company. So I'm excited for the future for a company that's been around for so long. I mean, as you know, 1965 was when it was founded, and actually, I will show you something if I can get it on the camera. I was already at Kemo in 1990, and let's see if you can read that. If it comes out the right way on my screen, it comes out backwards. Bill and Terry produced an anniversary silver spoon, because it was the silver anniversary of the company, 25 years, and so this is a hallmarked silver anniversary spoon from back in 1990. So 1990 sounds like a long time ago to most people, but it was already the company's silver anniversary, and I was there for that. So
I think Kemo has evolved its product range. Again, we need to look at the world when Kemo started was entirely analog, and as Kemo has evolved along with the rest of the vibration testing world, gradually more and more of the analysis has become digital. And but the world is still analog, and we need to convert the analog world into the digital world. And Kemo plays a vital role in that, in conditioning the analog world before it becomes digital. So as I see the Kemo product range now, it's integrated itself well into that requirement.
I think it's changed quite a lot, really, because a big application for filters is in pre-processing a signal before you converted it into using an A to D converter, because A to D converters didn't really like having certain frequencies stuffed into them, and so you'd filter them out. That problem is, to a large extent in the industries that we've serviced, has gone away with the availability of certain kinds of high performance A to D converters. It hasn't gone away completely. I mean, in the system that I've most recently had the design responsibility for, it is still a sample data system, and it still needs a high performance anti-aliasing filter, which of course I designed using techniques that I've been familiar with for 30 or more years. So I think it's just that the number of commercial and commonplace applications has really dropped down. People, although we talk about inflation a lot as one of the sort of things that cause a lot of people grief, in electronics, there's been a huge deflation. If you're looking at the sort of ability of electronics, the quality of ICs, the quality of computers, what you can get now. I have more power, more computing power in my phone than I ever had at Kemo. So the fewer people need analog filters. It's important to be able to find those people, because I'm quite active on LinkedIn, for instance, on the technical channels there, and there's very much a sense that, you know, people have pretty much forgotten how to do this. And so, you know, there's a lot of requirement for teaching that's needed now, just to make sure that when people do need to do this kind of thing, they do it properly. And I think it is a market niche that I think Kemo can continue to exploit, because if you do find an application that requires a pretty decent filter, really, a lot of companies, their engineers aren't capable of doing that, even with all the computers and the simulations and the support from applications people at chip companies. You know, if it needs to be done properly, that's still the role of a company like Kemo.
One or two specialist projects. I don't think I'm really able to talk about them, but one of them was going from a detailed discussion with a customer and 6 days later delivering a working prototype unit. That was one of our proudest moments, because we completely designed from scratch a specialist system, and it passed on day 8 of that process. It passed the customer's acceptance trials, which we were very pleased. That made us that was a good feeling. Otherwise, just that I've carried the Kemo name for 25 years, and I've passed it on alive, and I've passed it on to a good, capable team in Neil and Don, who will carry it forward. It will change, it will evolve. That's what it's meant to do. Kemo as a brand and as a series of products, I think sits in a good place in the market. I think it still has a solid reputation, and with the growth and the expansion that Neil and Donna are working on and already achieving, I think Kemo will gently grow. It will maintain its reputation as a good, reliable supplier of quality parts.
That's a tough one. Everything we do is innovative, and the expertise we rely on, both from applications point of view and production and manufacturing, because we are specialists. It's difficult to single out a particular product, but things like software meters, which are used for, particularly in the network rail and rail type industries, are very specialist and very unique now, with very little alternatives in the global marketplace. And that is a mixture of knowledge of low noise, and also knowing how to provide very high quality signal processing or signal filtering in the analog world. There's quite a few. I think one of the frustrations when we joined or took over the business was that many of our products, and perhaps this is about trying to move some of our products into new applications, new customer uses, etc. But there's a number of our products, for example, our VBF40, which is our top end, our most sort of premium programmable filter product, which doesn't have a feature called charge amplification built into its circuit boards. But many of the applications for that in underwater acoustics are used with hydrophones, and many hydrophones still rely on piezoelectric technology, and they require a charge amplifier. Unfortunately, if our filter, the VBF40 in particular, had charge amplification, it would be a very natural partner in that application. But it's not currently there, but it's currently in the development plan. It's something we want to add to the existing products, both as a new product design, but also as potentially as an add-on for our existing customers using VBF40s that might want to add that feature. We are currently opening overseas offices. The most recent of those was in India, in Bangalore. Our India office has now been up and running for 2 years. And this is very much about, as I said before, not just growing the business through sales. It's about embracing a global manufacturing footprint. And I think that's very important to spread the Kemo brand, the Kemo name, the Kemo technology into new markets. India is an emerging and very fast growing marketplace in many areas, in aerospace and defence, automotive, all very strong markets for Kemo's products. But the ability to support Make in India and making things locally for that marketplace is important, rather than relying on just importing from overseas suppliers.
There aren't that many companies in the world that make filter systems, and Kemo, we're lucky to have Kemo here in the UK, because they have products that meet a very distinct requirement, and they do it well. I'd say quality, innovation, and reliability.
Kemo is history, it's an opportunity. It's one of those rare occasions where we have a very specialist company in a unique and fascinating field of signal processing, which has still got great potential for growth. And I think being able to develop that and grow that with new products is an opportunity not to be missed. Evolution in any engineering company, or indeed any company in any sector, is very important. And I think one of the challenges has always been for a company to stay ahead of the game and to keep that evolution going. Always be mindful of technology changes, mindful of how that might not just affect your own products, but also how it can affect your customers and the applications for your products. Many would say that digital filtering is the future. However, whilst that is potentially very true and has many benefits, the world that we work in, which is primarily analog filtering, still has a very, very strong place. There are still very, very clear benefits of what would seem old technology. So we have to be mindful of evolving, we have to be mindful of continuing to grow and develop our technology whilst not going too far ahead, whilst not ignoring the applications which still benefit from core technology and what would seem as perhaps old technology. So we have to balance old and new and keep the growth and embrace both sides of things as we develop our products. I think it's a once in a lifetime opportunity really to be part of and to lead a company when it hits 60 years of age. It's a long time for any business to still be in business. I mean, many companies will fail and fold. Not all companies grow, not all companies are successful. For 60 years in business, over which 60 years the technology has changed. I mean, 60 years ago in 1965, technology, computers didn't exist, and we didn't have the powerful software of equipment we have now in terms of analysis and data testing, etc. So to be part of something that hits 60 years old and to still have an opportunity for that company to continue growth into another 60 years and set up the next stage of its development is an exciting opportunity, not just for me, but for everybody within the company, within the team, UK and India and globally. It's a very unique opportunity.
Keep doing what you're doing and do it well.
Plan ahead, stay flexible, stay optimistic. Hard times will come. Neil and Donna, you will go through them because you're both very capable people. And take the opportunities, which I know you will. Some will come and you will grab them, and I'm sure you will do a good job. But I wish you heartfelt good luck and good fortune for the future. Kemo is in very good hands.
A heartfelt thank you to Kendall, Robert, Jeff and Neil for sharing your time, memories and insights. We are honored to have captured them as we celebrate this milestone. And to our viewers, thank you for joining us in celebrating 60 years of this milestone. We look forward to the road ahead with you.